Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. U.S. President Donald Trump raises tariffs on the Philippines, jacking up rates from 17 to 20%. Two Filipino seafarers are killed in a Houthi attack on the vessel MV Eternity Sea as the Red Sea conflict claims more lives. And later on in the show, energy regulator Monalisa Dimalanta joins us to talk leadership, transition, transparency, and what it will take to fix the power sector for good. U.S. President Donald Trump fires off a new round of tariff letters targeting 7 countries, including ours. In his letter to President Bongbong Marcos, Trump confirmed that Philippine exports will now face a 20% tariff starting August 1st, up from the earlier 17% rate. Slapped with fresh tariffs include Algeria, Iraq, Libya, and Sri Lanka, facing duties ranging from 25 to 30%. Trump also took aim at Brazil, imposing a 50% tariff on all of its imports after a public clash with the Brazilian president, who mocked him as an unwanted emperor. Global markets rally overnight as the Federal Reserve signals a likely rate cut this year, easing fears that Trump's tariffs will disrupt monetary policy. Wall Street closes higher on Wednesday after Fed minutes show most officials see rate cuts as appropriate later this year. They flag that tariff-driven inflation is likely to be temporary, giving room to support growth. Also boosting sentiment, Nvidia hits a $4 trillion valuation powered by relentless demand for AI chips. It's now among Wall Street's most valued tech names.
I would say tense is the word I would use to describe this market right now. You know, we're slightly positive on the day and on the week, and really it's around when are we going to see some more substantial information from some high volume trading partners. We've got a slew of letters that went out, nothing really impactful. Really all you have to work with is the Japan and South Korea. Those two combined make up roughly 12% of the imported goods volume, and 25% is within the acceptable tolerance. So nothing has moved markets either to the upside or the downside at this point in time.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 0.5%. The S&P 500 up by 0.6%, and the Nasdaq higher by 0.9%. European markets also finished in the green. The FTSE up by 0.2%. Germany's DAX surges 1.4%, and France's CAC 40 surged by 1.4% as well. Here at home, the Finance Department wants global lenders to rethink the rules, saying middle-income countries like the Philippines deserve faster, fairer access to development capital. Undersecretary Joven Balbosa says the Philippines is backing the Sevilla Commitment, a new framework that urges multilateral banks to look beyond GDP when deciding on who gets aid. The agreement, adopted last week, calls for better loan terms, stronger technical support, and more private capital for countries in transition. The goal, level the playing field so nations like the Philippines can build resilience and compete globally without falling into a debt trap. Now, the future of online gambling is uncertain, with talks of raising age limits, imposing tougher rules, and even shutting it down completely. But industry players are sounding the alarm, saying a sweeping ban could fuel the black market and make enforcement even harder. Sujin Kim has the details.
Amid a wave of proposed legislation intended to tighten controls on online gambling, from raising the legal age, imposing cash-in thresholds, to a total industry ban, PAGCOR Chairman and CEO Alejandro Tenco clarified PAGCOR is not calling for a total shutdown, but for stronger, smarter regulation.
We believe that with stricter regulation, we will be able to curb the illegals, no, or the illegal operators who are really hurting the industry today. It is unfortunate that these illegal operators, who, by the way, are operating outside the Philippines. So clearly, if there is stricter regulation, we will be able to control all these online gaming operators who are doing business in the Philippines and licensed by PAGCOR.
Among the first moves, restrictions on advertising. PAGCOR is coordinating with the Ad Standards Council to enforce tighter rules on ad placement and timing.
We will continue to regulate. We will continue to explain to the general public, even to the senators and to the congressmen, what we're doing. It takes a while for a bill to be passed into a law. So in the meantime, I'll just concentrate on what we're doing.
Yes,
because I should not be distracted.
Currently, nearly 70 online gaming operators are licensed by PAGCOR.
And we do not intend to issue more licenses because we do not want to oversaturate the market.
PAGCOR is also looking into minimum bets and deposits, using AI-driven tools to limit access to only those who can afford to play.
We're looking at the possibility of having minimum bets. No? So only those who truly can afford can play. Same with minimum deposits. No? As of now, kasi there are no thresholds as to how much you can deposit, how much you can bet. Diba? So we are considering the regulating also that aspect of the deposits and the bets that will be placed by a customer.
With online gaming revenues jumping from 12 billion pesos in 2021 to 54 billion in 2024, PAGCOR is pushing for legal framework updates to keep pace.
If we will not make certain adjustments or if we will not recalibrate, then our rules and regulations might not be adaptable today na compared to how it was before. So I do not want to call it over-regulation. I want to basically say that PAGCOR as the regulator should also observe, study, and make certain adjustments if necessary.
Gaming tech provider DFNN underscored that licensed outlets play a critical role in the local economy, from jobs to taxes to lease payments.
Of course, thousands of households where these gaming sites operate in, since they are PAGCOR licensed, they're duly licensed, they're regulated. All of them have a commitment, and they all remain committed to contribute to the local government income or revenue. So they pay the mayor's permit, they renew their business permits, since they are a participant in the economy of that community.
And while lawmakers zero in on a total ban, legal expert attorney Tonette Kioge of Ardent Consult warns that prohibition could backfire. She argues that the real threat is illegal gambling, unregulated, untaxed, and unsafe. As debates intensify in the legislature, the central question remains: is a ban the true path to protection or a gateway to deeper unintended consequences? Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Energy Department is turning up the heat on airing oil firms even without police powers to go after them directly. Acting Energy Chief Sharon Garin says they're still tracking violations and warning that some companies may be engaging in anti-competitive behavior.
I do believe that there are still players na hindi pa playing according to the rules, if you ask me. There are still distortions in the reporting, in our observations, na meron pang may mali pa eh.
Meanwhile, power prices in the wholesale spot market are starting to cool along with the weather.
Sa ngayon, lumaki yung ating, tapos na rin kasi yung ibang mga PMS ng mga power plants. So sa monitoring natin daily, umaabot ng 16,000 megawatts dito sa Luzon na capacity natin, while the demand has slowed down, nasa 10,000, 11,000 megawatts na tayo.
Two commissioners at the Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, wrap up their terms today, leaving the body temporarily lean until Malacanang appoints replacements. But Chair Monalisa Dimalanta says it's business as usual there. Just yesterday, the Commission held its first ever open meeting, part of a broader push for transparency and stronger enforcement. This morning, we speak to Chair Mona about the road ahead and what success looks like over the next 12 months. Chair Mona, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Maiki, and good morning to everyone who's watching us with us this morning.
Okay, let's start with the latest development on the ERC front. From 5 commissioners, you're now down to 2. A little leaner until the president appoints the replacements. You still constitute a quorum, though. But how are you going to be maintaining regulatory momentum with just 3 commissioners, Chair Mona?
Thank you, Maiki. I like your term, regulatory momentum, because that's what we have right now. Actually, we're so happy with the output of our staff. It's really our staff who have been carrying the heavy work for the commission over the last few months, and we've been turning out really quite well, working efficiently. We finally found our groove, and then we have 2 commissioners retiring, as you mentioned. So it's a challenge, but as long as we are 3. We have a quorum and we have a mandate. More importantly, we have the duty to continue to work as if we are 5. Because as I think many of you know, the commission is a collegial body. So even if there are 5 or 3, it's not as if we divide the work among 3 or among 5 people. It's the commission acting as one all the time.
Yeah.
So we can still act as one, even if we are leaner. I like your word, leaner.
Okay, and when it comes to rate cases, Chair Mona, you need a favorable vote of at least 3. So that means you guys always need to make a unanimous decision until there are new appointees. What are your thoughts on this?
That's true. I think the main challenge would be on the rate cases, that we have to all agree. There's no room for dissent if you're a commission of 3 for rate cases. For other cases like the permitting matters that we do, that's fine. 2 of 3 would still pass. But for rate cases, we really have to continue debating and arguing and deliberating until we get to a point of consensus, because there's no, as I mentioned, there's no room for dissent if there are just 3 of us.
Right, no room for dissent and no room for a delay in the appointments. How long of a vacancy, anyone's guess, but how long of a vacancy are you expecting?
I think for the ERC, I think the president is very much aware that this is a crucial post. This is a crucial element of a functioning power sector. Not even a progressive power sector, but just for the sector to function, the commission has to have its full body. So I expect that maybe in the next few weeks, we would have word from Malacanang on the new appointees. And I think historically also, there has not been a long vacancy, except for the period. There was some time in mid-20, I think 2015, 2016, where there was a long vacancy in the commission. But apart from that, I think appointments were made in a timely manner, in a matter of weeks only.
Mm-hmm. You have some visibility on this, Chair Mona. Around how many applicants are there for these posts?
Well, the applications go to Malacanang, but sometimes, for some reason, I'm copied by the applicant. So that's the only way I have visibility. So I think from what I've seen, there are a lot of applications. There are more than 10 that have passed my office. But again, I've no hand, I've no authority on any of these applications.
Okay, moving forward, in his farewell remarks, Commissioner Lumbatan pointed to the ERC's long-standing backlog as one of the agency's toughest challenges. How big is that backlog today, Chair Mona?
Okay, I think when we first did a database of our backlog, that was mid 2023, 2024. We were looking at around 5,000 cases at that time. We have, no, that's mid 2023, that's correct. Then we have trimmed it down to around 3,000 now, because there are also new cases coming in. So it's not as if we said, 5,000, let's stop the clock so that we can clean up first the inventory, right? That's not how it works. So cases continue to come in, and we have, as I mentioned, we have gotten into our groove in cleaning up cleaning up the backlog, addressing the cases, but we're still around 3,000, I think, at this time.
And a lot of these are legacy issues coupled with new cases. So apart from appointing 2 new commissioners, Chair Mona, what is the ERC looking at to help it clear these cases faster? Maybe staffing reforms, tech upgrades. What's on the docket to make everything more efficient and flow faster?
The digitalization of the processes is really number one. We started with that in 2023, and now we're reaping the benefits. The only way we were able to work efficiently over the last 6-8 months is because we have digitalized our processes, and it has really changed the game for a lot of us here in the ERC. But the second really is structural. I like what you said. Reform, and that's what we were working on last year with Congress. We were hoping that the EPIRA amendment would get passed, because what we have currently is actually an organization that was built in 2001, that is trying to address the issues of 2025. And so there's a huge misfit between the organization and the issues that it's trying to address. And the only way we can have that authority to revamp ourselves, to reform ourselves structurally, is if there is a mandate from Congress. Unfortunately, we were not able to pass the legislation the last Congress. I'm hoping that we still have very good support from both the House and the Senate. We're hoping it gets past this 20th Congress.
Yeah, hoping so that you have the capacity to help reorganize the agency as you see fit. But of course, you need Congress for that. Moving on, just yesterday, the ERC held its first ever open committee. What was that like, Chair Mona? What prompted it? And will this be the new norm?
I'm really hoping it will be the new norm, not just for ERC, but maybe for all our other regulatory agencies. This is something that I have really been pushing for in the commission since I joined, because I know I've been in practice in the energy sector for more than 20 years. I've seen in other jurisdictions that commission meetings are held openly. So it's something that I initiated, in the idea I planted when I joined the ERC, and I'm very glad that in 2023, one of our commissioners who retired, by the way, Commissioner Maceda, joined a study mission to the U.S. And in the U.S., she witnessed firsthand commission meetings being held openly with the public viewing, sometimes even allowed to participate directly as the commissioners deliberate. And from that, we were able to convince the other commissioners to pass a resolution among the commission in early 2024, I think February 2024, when we formalized that we will adopt an open commission meeting at least quarterly in the initial stages, because logistically it's also a lot more work for our staff, admittedly. But we have to start. So we started working on it in February of 2024, and then finally yesterday, I'm so happy that we held our first open commission meeting. And this takes us by leaps and bounds in our efforts to make things more transparent, so that our public, because regulatory bodies survive on the basis of trust. There is no other currency by which a regulatory body can measure its success. If the public trusts its decisions, then it can call itself a successful one. But we cannot generate trust if we are not open. So I think we can dispose of perceptions of bias, this idea that certain elements or certain parties are being favored, by just opening up and just letting everyone see what happens in commission deliberations. It also keeps us on our toes. Among
very
the
important.
Very
Thank you
important.
for accelerating the pace of transparency at the ERC. Transparency is crucial to regulation, especially as, following the NGCP's ruling, energy consumers across the country will be seeing an additional 10 centavos per kilowatt hour starting this August, applied monthly for several years. What's the ERC doing to ensure that power companies are held accountable not just for distribution, but for fair pricing as well.
Oh, I'm so glad that you tied up those two items, Mikey, because for whether it's for NGCP or the rates of distribution utilities, consumers have the right to know what happened that resulted in 10 centavos per kilowatt hour increase, or what was considered by the commission that resulted in that rate. So usually what happens is we decide, then we explain. But in this case, if we open our commission meetings, the public can monitor directly what issues were considered by the commission. And to address your main point, your main question on what are we doing to ensure fair prices, that's one. We ensure that consumers see the deliberations as they evolve, as we hold more open commission meetings. And then second, of course, it's whether the public sees it or not, it's our job. It's our job as the commission to ensure that only prudent and efficient pricing or prudent and efficient costs are incorporated in the bills of the consumers. I'm a consumer myself. I look for that when we do our study, when we do our evaluation. So I think it's the only guarantee is for the commission to do its job. That's as simple as it gets.
Chair Mona, you're almost midway into your term. You're here until you have this post until 2029, nearly 3 years into your term. What would you say is the most urgent reform that we need right now in the power sector?
I think we've gone a long way in terms of reforms. I think that there's still a lot to do, but we've gone a long way. The first issue we need to address is really the physical infrastructure. We have a lot of renewable plants, for example, coming in. Those electrons are desired. We want those green electrons to flow because we don't have to pay fuel for those electrons. We don't have to import fuel for those electrons. But if we don't make sure that the wires are there, that the poles are there for these electrons to get to our homes, then what are those plants for, right? I mean, those will be what we call what I call the tragedy of our time, the stranded assets. So we need to upgrade our infrastructure. But upgrading infrastructure, both distribution and transmission, means we need to pay for those upgrades as well. And this is where it gets a bit challenging, because then the savings on generation will need to move to the other side of the bill, which is transmission and distribution. But in that, the third element that we need in terms of reforms is really to make sure that whoever is watching out for those for the migration of those charges, to make sure that in the end, it's not about moving it from generation to transmission to distribution. It's about making sure that we pay less, because that it should be the fruit of efficiency. And that's the job of the third element, the job of the regulator. The regulator has to make sure that all these things are working seamlessly, and that only projects that benefit the consumers are passed on to the consumers and nothing else.
Yeah, upgrading infrastructure sounds very expensive. When it comes to these upgrades, Chair Mona, where are we now and how far are we from where we need to be?
Oh, I cannot give you the numbers in terms of how far are we from where we need to be. But I think on the end of the transmission, there's been a lot of progress. We're now interconnected Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Finally, in 2024, that has been accomplished. But the work now translates to our distribution utilities, and particularly our electric cooperatives. I've said this before, and I will not get tired of saying it again. I think we've neglected our electric cooperatives for quite some time now. Both our electric cooperatives in the main grids, and more particularly our off-grid areas. Especially us in Metro Manila, in the cities, we forget sometimes that there is another power system operating outside of the main grids, and these are our islands. They're not interconnected. They don't have any option apart from the plants that that are present there. They don't have a market, a WESM from which they can buy power if suddenly a plant turns out, or a plant goes down, like what has happened in Siquijor and other provinces. We need to address those issues as well.
Yeah, talking about our power rates are some of the highest in Asia. So there's always talk of how we can bring this down. There were hopes that nuclear energy, a nuclear energy push, would help reduce the cost of electricity in the Philippines significantly. Where are we on this front?
On the efforts on nuclear energy, or developing nuclear energy for power utilization, I think it's the DOE, the Department of Energy, that's leading that charge. Also, Congress has passed the Philatom bill, because that's the first step. We need to have a regulatory agency specifically for nuclear resource, and the Philatom bill, I think, aims to address that. I'm not sure if the president had signed the bill into law, but that's the first step. I think there are 4 or 5 other steps. So we're actually quite a long way from the realization of this intention. And there's going to be a lot more discussions, I would expect, as we get to that
But are
point.
you guys at the ERC in favor of this direction, Chair Mona?
We're preparing for it. We don't set the policies. That's not our role. The regulator's role is to regulate. The DOE's role is to set the policies. But since we see the writing on the wall, we are preparing ourselves to be equipped, to be capacitated once the policy is actually made.
Now, still on high electricity rates, structural reforms take time. But there are short-term measures, such as the removal of VAT on our electricity. Are you in favor of this?
If I had the magic wand, yes. I think that would be the easiest way to lower our bills. Because, you mentioned earlier, we have the highest, one of the highest, we're second only to Singapore among our neighbors in terms of the level of power rates that we pay. But that's also because our rates are not subsidized. Not only are our power rates not subsidized by the government, it's also bearing heavy taxes. So if government cannot extend subsidy, then maybe take out the taxes so that the burden would be less. But ultimately, I think it's a call that needs to be made by Congress and our economic managers, because they have to. I must admit, I do not see the full picture. I do not know what those taxes are used for. And if there are social services that are funded by those taxes that will no longer be made available because the taxes are forgone, then we also need to be responsible enough to appreciate that.
And what are the other solutions on the table to help bring down the cost of power in the country, Chair Mona? Perhaps, expanding retail competition, rooftop solar, and net metering. What are the other things that we can do?
Yes, I think on the consumer level, there are so many things that can be done and that are being done already. But I think I'll go to that second. But I think the first thing that can be done is really for us, the regulator, also to do our job. We've conducted fuel audits just to make sure that only for the pass-through fuel cost, because we're paying for the cost of importation. That's why I mentioned it earlier. The cost of coal and gas imported, we pay for all those, and they're called the pass-through fuel costs. But we need to make sure, the regulator needs to make sure, the distribution utilities need to make sure that only true costs are passed on to consumers. And we did that by initiating what we call the fuel audit. We started it, I think, in December of 2022. It's a continuing process. We have penalized some distribution utilities that we have seen have been passing on charges without even reviewing the fuel invoices of their suppliers. So that's a big breach of that contract with the consumers. So that's one. But the second thing really is, and this is what gets me excited about where we are in our power sector now. Consumers now are more empowered. Retail competition. Today, it's no longer just the large consumers that can buy directly from their supplier of choice. Even households, small consumers with what we call the retail aggregation program that we have started at the ERC in 2024, consumers can now band together, and then they become big if they band together. Then they can already contract for their own suppliers. And we've had schools, banks, retail establishments that have joined this what we call the revolution, actually, a consumer revolution.
More options on the table. Chair Mona, last question. A year from now, what would success look like from your lenses?
Okay. A year from now sounds like a long time because I go on a day-to-day basis here at the commission. But what I think for as a regulator, ironically, my belief is a success would look for the context that we have in the Philippines. Success would be more would look like an industry with less regulation, more competition. That's really what I aim to see. And we see that already in our retail market. There's more competition now. We don't need to regulate it because consumers are exercising directly their consent, their power of choice. And that's what we hope to see, more of these competition.
Yeah, looking forward to that, more healthy competition, because power is the fuel of economic growth. So it's so important. Thank you for what you do in this sector, Chair Mona.
Thank you. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you for this opportunity to update also everyone.
Okay, we're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are doing this Thursday morning, with investors watching for new data and fresh signals from Washington. Now, right now, I'm seeing a mixed picture. The Nikkei 225 is trading to the downside, lower by 0.6%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is up by 0.1%, and Shanghai's Composite is up as well, up by 0.3%. Singapore's Straits Times Index in the green as well, up by 0.4%. Now, here at home, Philippine shares extended their winning streak Wednesday. The PSE Index jumped 1.1% to close at 65.04, its best finish since May. Now, the rally was driven by strong local data and hopes of a U.S. trade compromise. Trading volume hit 1.41 billion shares, with value turnover at 7.8 billion pesos. But overnight, the trade landscape took a turn. Washington issued a new round of tariff letters targeting 7 more countries, including the Philippines. The new levy, 20% on exports to the United States starting August 1st, up from 17% earlier this year. Now, the message is clear: manufacture in America or pay the price. Markets had been hoping for a deal, but this escalation may rattle sentiment, especially here in Asia, which remains a prime target. Over the near term, analysts say trade volatility combined with new levies on copper and pharma could push investors back into a defensive mode, especially if rate cuts are delayed. The bottom line, tariff risk is back in play, and any escalation from Washington could erase recent gains and trigger a shift to safer assets. Now let's check on how our market is doing as of 10:40 this morning. The main gauge is up by 0.1% to 65.12. All shares index up slightly, up by 0.2% to 38.25. The sub-indices are showing a mixed picture. The financials, holding firms, services, and mining and oil counters are in the green, whereas the industrial and property counters are bucking the market's current uptrend. So the market looks cautiously optimistic. Participation is thick, though. We've got 471 million shares traded, with a healthy value turnover for early trade at over 2 billion pesos, at 2.4 billion pesos. Market breadth is positive, with 81 advancers, 64 decliners, and 40 stocks unchanged. Taking a look at the currency market, the peso strengthened slightly, opening at 56.48 to the greenback from Wednesday's close of 56.57. Now, Philippine bank accounts may not stay hidden for long under a new bill that would finally tear down parts of the country's ironclad bank secrecy law. House Speaker Martin Romualdez has filed House Bill number 7, which would allow the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to to examine bank accounts of individuals, corporations, and groups suspected of illegal activity. Under current law, Republic Act 1405, bank deposits are nearly untouchable, making it harder for authorities to uncover fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. If passed, this measure would give the BSP power to flag dubious transactions and strengthen the Philippines' push for financial integrity, a long-time ask from both reform advocates and foreign investors. After years of dominating the middle-income housing market, SM Prime is leveling up and making a big play for luxury. The property giant is launching a new high-end residential line, and industry watchers say this could rewrite the rules in the premium segment. Eugene Kim has the details.
We believe that right now is our moment to enter into the premium market.
After over 2 decades of dominance in the middle-income segment through SMDC, SM Prime is now making a bold entry into the premium residential market. The move aims to cater to Filipino families with growing wealth, greater space needs, and higher lifestyle aspirations.
Essentially, where SMDC stops in terms of offerings, Signature Series takes over. SMDC, as a core middle income market, has really established a gigantic presence in that segment. They will not be in that market forever. They will eventually have bigger families, they'll have more disposable income, they will have upgrade requirements. But we have not been able to address those needs as they want to upgrade. They have to go elsewhere. We want to be there for them, continue servicing them when their needs evolve. With greater wealth, with bigger families, with larger space requirements, we want to be there when that time comes for them.
The Signature Series will feature horizontal high-end communities, starting with the landmark project in Cignal Heights. Spanning 284 hectares and backed by an initial 25 billion peso capital expenditure, the project will offer luxury lots of no less than 750 square meters. Real estate consultant David Lee Chu argues the pricing is strategic and competitive, especially for those seeking prime southern metro locations.
At 100 million, 750 square meters, that's 130,000 a square meter. That's about half the size, less than half the size, half the price of Ayala Alabang. So I think that's a very good price to go into the market.
SM isn't a stranger to the high-end segment. In its commercial portfolio, it has already built upscale landmarks like the Podium, S. Maison, SM Aura, Conrad Manila, and Tagaytay Highlands. Now, it plans to tap into its 400-hectare land bank in Metro Manila for more high-end projects under the Signature Series banner. Real estate experts say the market is ripe for disruption, and SM's entry could raise the bar.
There's only 3 companies playing in the high-end market. That's Rockwell, Shangri-La, and Ayala Land Premier, in that order. There is room for more players to challenge the status quo and to force everyone to level up and be better.
We've spent decades looking into our developments. We've understood people. We've studied. And we believe that we are ready. We have the market. So we are ready to take this leap forward. Filipinos are ready. Ready for a different kind of premium.
Lee Chu estimates that land values in Cignal Heights could rise by 5 to 6% annually as development accelerates. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
2 Filipino seafarers are dead and 5 others rescued after Houthi rebels attacked a cargo ship in the Red Sea. The MV Eternity Sea, a Liberian-flagged vessel, sank Wednesday after taking multiple strikes off the coast of Yemen, an escalation in a region that's become increasingly dangerous for global trade. The Department of Migrant Workers says the Filipino survivors are safe, but their identities and locations are being kept confidential for now due to security concerns. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Kakdak says they're still verifying reports of possible additional casualties and hope to speak directly with the survivors to piece together what happened.
5 have been rescued. What are the statuses as of now of the 17 others missing?
Yung 17 others are right now still being searched, and as I said, among the 17 would be the reported fatalities, which we will confirm once we talk to the 5 seafarers.
We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Malacanang is keeping its distance from the growing drama over former President Rodrigo Duterte's reported last wishes. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says it's a private family matter and not something for the administration to comment on. Vice President Sara Duterte earlier shared that her father doesn't want his remains brought home if he dies while in ICC detention. Duterte's ex-wife, Elizabeth Zimmerman, meanwhile says that the former president is now, quote, skin and bones inside the Hague facility. Now, one lawmaker is standing her ground. Risa Ontiveros says she's unfazed by talk that she could become the lone member of the minority. Hannah T. has the details.
Senator Risa Ontiveros is not hurt, following reports that former opposition allies may join the Senate majority. This after Senators Kiko Pangilinan and Bam Aquino are allegedly part of the majority, backing Senate President Cheese Escudero. Once part of the majority bloc, they may be given opportunity to chair Senate committees, including Basic Education and Agriculture, 2 committees that suit both senators.
Sabi ko nga, basta patuloy akong maninindigan. Kung ang bawat isa sa amin ay may sariling diskarte, ako rin naman po, basta nakatutok pa rin ako doon sa layunin na palakasin yung oposisyon, hindi lang sa loob, pati sa labas ng Senado.
It's still unclear if she will be the only one left in the independent minority, but Ontiveros vows to continue speaking truth to power.
Hindi ko pa sigurado kung mag-iisa ako o hindi, pero kung ano man, basta maninindigan ako.
She declined to speak for her colleagues, saying their decisions should be their own.
Ang bawat isa naman sa amin ay responsable at saka accountable sa aming mga desisyon. So siguro dun sa mga kasama ko, mas dapat na sila ang sumagot kung bakit nila gagawin or hindi gagawin ang isang bagay na pinag-uusapan sa ngayon.
Ontiveros has yet to confirm if she's willing to work with the Veterans Bloc, which includes Senator Tito Soto, who earlier said he's open to being minority leader. The lineup of the Senate composition will be finalized on July 28, the same day PBBM will deliver his State of the Nation address. Ontiveros remains the last holdover from the Makabayan Liberal Opposition Bloc and may face an upcoming Senate supermajority that's poised to be a mix of opposition figures and administration-aligned allies. Hannah T., Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan isn't backing down, firing back at critics in a pointed Facebook post. Now, to those claiming he's selling out to the enemy, his response is sharp. Say what you want. Pangilinan says he's willing to work with anyone if it means bringing down food prices and fighting hunger. He also confirms active talks with Senators Risa Ontiveros and Bam Aquino as the opposition charts a new path in a shifting Senate. On another front, U.S. President Donald Trump is temporarily sparing 5 African nations from his latest round of tariffs, a strategic move as he resets trade ties around the world. Trump hosted the leaders of Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal at the White House, saying the U.S. treats Africa better than China does and vowing to deepen trade partnerships on fairer terms. He also said more tariff notification letters will be sent out to other countries in the coming days, keeping global markets on edge as the trade landscape continues to shift.
The formula was a formula based on common sense, based on deficits, based on how we've been treated over the years, and based on raw numbers and we're going to have a couple of more coming out today. Brazil, as an example, has been not good to us, not good at all. We're going to be releasing a Brazil number, I think, later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
And as global trade shifts, so do geopolitical fault lines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now says a ceasefire deal with Hamas may be within reach. Speaking to U.S. media, Netanyahu confirmed ongoing talks for a potential 60-day ceasefire, one that would involve the return of half of the living and deceased hostages currently held by Hamas. Asked whether he would accept Hamas's demand to place aid distribution under UN control, Netanyahu rejected that idea, insisting that Israel already has a system in place for getting relief into Gaza. Elsewhere in the world, in Texas, flags are flying at half-staff to honor the victims of the recent flash flood that's killed at least 119 people and left dozens still missing. The statewide order runs from July 9th until sunrise on the 14th. More than 170 people remain unaccounted for, and officials warn that the death toll could still climb. No survivors have been found since Friday. The flood struck on July 4th after torrential rains caused the Guadalupe River to overflow, sweeping away homes, cars, and entire communities. Before we go, stars showed up in style for Balenciaga's Haute Couture in Paris as the fashion house bids farewell to creative director Denma, who's moving to Gucci in a shakeup that could reshape luxury brand strategy. Reality TV icon Kim Kardashian graced the runway alongside actors Nicole Kidman, Naomi Watts, and singer Katy Perry. Rap star Cardi B and K-pop idol Jooyoon from The Boys also had fans cheering. For investors watching the $300 billion global luxury market, this marks a new chapter. Balenciaga's next creative head, Pierpaolo Piccoli, is set to unveil his first collection in October at Paris Fashion Week. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel.